Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us in Between the Covers. This evening, I'm talking with author K.E. Barden, who is the author of Gilded Mirror, which is a Finding Ever After series, her first book in that series. Thank you, Kim, for joining us this evening. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me, Brad.
No, pleasure. And tell us all about the Gilded Mirror. Tell us what it's about. What do we expect for that? In that book?
So it's book one in a book series that I've written called the Finding Ever After series. It's now turning into a series of about 5 books. So we'll see how that goes. But it was it's just a little bit of a parody on the older dark fairy tales that we have come to love. So it's sort of Lord of the Rings crosses Grimm's. So there's no, happy fluffy I guess things happening here, but yeah, it was just something that really interests me, fairy tales, and I guess I just wanted to take my own take on it and just see where that went. And I've produced the Gilded Mirror, so it's pretty exciting stuff.
So you say it's a darker side of the fairy tales and stuff. So are you saying it's more delving into the secrets of the darker secrets of the fairy tale characterizations instead of the happy ending and everybody lives in Neverland all pleased and safe? So you go a little bit more, it's not as happy. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Yeah, I think, fairy tales are so ingrained in everybody's life, no matter what age you are. And we've got a lot of different things that contribute towards what we do growing up as well, when it comes to happy ever after. And, Disney's a big factor on that one, for example, with the way that they've taken on those ones. But I mean, the darker fairy tales have always had a kind of moral to it, and they've always sort of reminded children and adults alike, I guess, that the world isn't always a very nice place, and that there are things that you need to worry about. So, things like poverty, hunger, sacrifice, death. And I wanted to explore that a little bit more from a fantasy type side, and I had a bit of fun with it. Like, it's not all doom and gloom, I promise. It is a love story as well, and there are a lot of happy things that happen, but I just wanted to explore that darker side a little bit more, because I think it's fascinating, when you've got things like, the Little Mermaid turned into sea foam, Little Matchbox Girl dies in the snow, things like that, but they were all there for a reason, and you still take a lot from those short stories. They're quite powerful fairy tales, I think, especially for something that's, really, really short.
Absolutely. And Shrek did it so well too. So,
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So the same vein of fun and interesting, just taking something that's we know and giving it a spin of uniqueness, which I like. So did you find it was hard to write such a book, like having so many elements already existing in the sense of what we know, and then to try and get your voice into that and understand that? And was that hard to create the new, I guess, version?
Yes and no. I think there's a lot of things in there that we have seen before, which is always going to happen. And there were moments where it got a bit too dark, where I've tried to put a little bit of maybe humor in it to just bring it back a little bit more. But I more wanted to explore what I could do with it. It originally started out as a project where it was supposed to be one book, like Ella Enchanted. It's it's for young teens, and it's not very long, and they did a really good take on their own version of a fairy tale with hints of Cinderella and everything in it. And I wanted to give that a go, and instead it expanded, and I started asking myself things like, what if this happened, or what could I do here, and little side things that originally was just an idea that popped in, sort of ended up interlinking into other things really, really well. So I may be the author, but the characters have certainly written it themselves. So it's been a journey. But yeah, what I originally started off with, the final project, is nothing what I'd planned. And I think that was half the fun, but I also think it was the easiest part of it, because it's as if it did it itself.
Good. No, you did it really well. The book's elements, as you say, the characterizations are so authentic to what we recognize, but then fresh because they're so different on their intricacies you've created to them. What was for you, I guess, I mean, naturally I ask the question generally of authors, like, you know, your writing process and the way in which you constructed your timeline to finish the book. And I think you've got a really interesting spin on this one, because you actually, if I'm not mistaken, limited, you had a very condensed time frame and a process. So please share with the readers this interesting little process of your writing styles that you wrote this book with.
So I'd heard of a writing, I guess, challenge, and it's a non-for-profit organization. I think it's run through the US, but it's worldwide, and it's done every November, and it's called National Novel Writing Month. And the goal is to write 50,000 words in 30 days. So you've basically got midnight from November 1 through to midnight November 30, and it's 50,000 words. So that averages something like 1,700 words a day. And it's something that I've, for a very long time, wanted to know if I could do it. So I set pen to paper, and by pen to paper, I wrote the whole thing on my mobile phone, because it was the only thing that I could find that I could carry with me everywhere. I did it on the bus, I did it after work, I did it on my lunch break, I did it, you know, waiting at the pub to have dinner with my family. And it ended up working really well. And I actually ended up finishing maybe 77,000 words that month of Finding Ever After. And what was supposed to be, as I said, an Ella Enchanted novel ended up just being the touching point of the beginning. So the funny thing about it is, the other thing that National Novel Writing Month has taught me is, I think I've mentioned this to you before, Brad, there's 3 different types of writers. So you've got your planners, who meticulously plan it, and they use, you know, the circle where you can draw out who's linked to who and how the story links, and they know exactly what's going to happen in each chapter and when it's going to happen and how they get there. And then you've got a pantser, and they're the ones that go, oh, I'm going to rewrite Cinderella. And then they sit down and they wing the whole thing. And I'm something called a plantser, where I plant a seed and then I watch it grow. So I know the beginning, the middle, and the end. I just don't know how I'm going to get there. And that's how this happened. So 77,000 words in, I was starting to get there, but I'd only just really, I guess, scraped the beginning of what this story is.
Now, that's a very impressive 4-week campaign of writing 77,000 words. Most authors who, as you say, have been plodding along for years would be most impressed, but also envious and probably intimidated. So my next question is, did you find yourself writing the whole 77,000 words in that month, or did you go into the month knowing you had certain plans and outlines, and you knew that certain pieces you just had to even flesh out? So maybe you had the construct in a brief way in your mind before you entered into the 30-day challenge, like, you know, or did you just all do it then?
It was word vomit. It was just, I knew from a previous project that I have, that one day I hope to finish after I've written this, I kept getting stuck, because I always went back and then I would edit it and then I would flesh it out and then I'd do all of this stuff, but it never actually went anywhere after that. And I read an article online from a guy who said that the only way that he finished his novel was he didn't look back. He just spat out what was ever in his head on that day, regardless of spelling mistakes, regardless of word repeats, and he just kept going. So that's what I did. I set my word goal for the day, which I think was 2,000, because I was working full time and I just wanted to make sure that I got it out. So days it flowed easily, other days it was a slog, but I just kept going until I hit that word count. But I didn't look back, I didn't reread it, I didn't edit it. It wasn't until the manuscript was finally finished, you know, I just typed the words "the end." I knew that was the end of the book. And then I was like, okay, now to read whatever garbage I've spilled out.
How did that go for you? What was your first impression when you reviewed it? Were you happy with the first draft or the first effort?
Honestly, it was a bit surreal. I thought that I'd really be able to tell the days that were bad versus the days that were good. You know, like there were days where everything you write down, you just go, this is awful. Like, I do not even want to edit this or even look at it ever again. It's that bad. But when you look at it, sorry, the door's just open. when you look at the manuscript as a whole, you can't actually tell the good days from the bad days. So that was a really, really nice feeling, because knowing that those days where it is tough and it's really hard to get that out, to see a product where it all blends and it all works was really, really satisfying. But it also meant, because I pumped it out so fast, there were passages or scenes that I was reading that I don't even remember writing. So it's as if reading somebody else's work, but you logically know that you've written it.
In 30 days, I don't think anyone will remember what they wrote for that much, that intensity. That's quite impressive. 2,000 words a day. Wow. So from that concept, now you went into the process of the writing challenge with the concept, with the book, with the outline. You had an idea that that's what you wanted to write. Did you research much of the book, or find yourself needing to research much of it after you'd written it again? So you'd created the situation and then had to review it. Did you find research was an important part, especially, I guess, with as you say, the stories that we are familiar with? So you have to keep it realistic to what we know, and then shift the paradigm so we can see the new side of it. Did you find there was a lot of research for that? Did you have to go back and revisit some of the classic children books, or?
For the first book, no. For book 2, I did reread some of the original ones, because there were a few little things that I did where I was like, is that a retake, or am I remembering that from something else, or anything like that? So book 1, no. But when book 2 came into it, which obviously ties into a lot of the stuff from book 1, I did have to reread some of the old goodies but baddies.
Good.
Yeah.
So with that too, like your construct of the process in which you wrote the book, my question usually is to ask, was there any challenges, or what was the biggest hiccup or challenge in writing the book that you faced, did you feel?
Getting the word count every day, and doing it while working full time. And November, as you know, is the start of the social events of the year. You're leading up to Christmas. It's my birthday during that month as well. So still doing that stuff whilst working full time and doing your 2,000 words a day. I was very tired.
I was going to say, that's commitment too. So you deserve any success this brings, because you put in the work, the effort. How did you find the editing process afterwards? How did you find finding someone to read it and getting that feedback, and then evaluating that feedback, because you knew it was so raw, and you'd really just, as you said, dumped out the words. Yep. Did you spend a lot of time firstly proofing it and then handing it to an editor, or did an editor come on board, or what was your process and your way of doing it?
It was a bit of an interesting process. It was kind of like walking through mud. I had no idea where to even start. I had this manuscript of, I think it's about 93,000 words finished now, but at the time it was about 125. I did online articles, and I read a few where they said, just start with the spelling and then go from reading it back to front. Some people said do it right away. Some people said have a cooling period. There was all of this information everywhere, and I didn't quite know how to process it. So I spoke to a friend of mine who then went into the whole, for a young adult book, it needs to be between 80,000 and 100,000 words, or no one's going to look at it. And so then I went into a panic mode of, when do I do the word cull? Where do I do it? How do I kill off something that I've spent so many hours doing? So I did let it cool, a cooling off period for about 2 months. And then I did just a basic Grammarly spell check. And then I printed it, hit it with a good old fashioned red pen. And then I read it out loud from beginning to end. And I think by that point, I didn't want to read the book ever again. I handed it to about 2 or 3 beta readers, but I only heard back from one. The other one was a 12-year-old, and that was quite an interesting process. It was lots of my favorite characters, Morena. And I'd go, okay, so you like the villain, why is that? And she'd be like, I don't know, I do. And I'd go, okay, so, your mum told me you paused, for a month in chapter 12, what bored you? Why didn't you want to pick it back up? And they're like, I don't know. And I was like, I'm getting nothing. But I also should have expected as much, being that they were so young. So yeah, it's definitely been trailing through mud. Book 2 editing, I think, was a lot easier because I experienced it.
Yes.
But yeah,
you're ready for more of the process.
Yeah, so I sort of knew where I was heading with that, and I've now got one beta reader who loves that genre and reads a lot of the similar books that I read, and she sort of helps me flesh out on things. And so that's been really, really handy, I guess, finding her. But throughout the whole process, by that point, yeah, hired an editor and then submitted to you guys, and you liked it.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
No, I really enjoyed it. So what, with that in mind, like, when did you decide you wanted to write? Like, did you do it through high school? A lot of writers talk about high school, they leave it till they develop a career and go back to it. What was your story? What was your feeling for writing? And especially to do it so intensely in one hit in that month.
I'd love to say that it's been a thing since childhood, but it has, but it hasn't. I was one of those kids, and I'm still one of those adults, where I like to step outside of my comfort zone and do something that I've never done. So as a kid, I did sports galore. I did all this other stuff, and I did submit a few different things, like a poem when I was, I think, in year 5, when the Canberra bushfires ran through, and it was in the Canberra Times newspaper. I won a writing competition or something for that. And then, at about 14 or 15, I decided I wanted to write a novel. And I started this sci-fi manuscript where I kept editing. So over a period of 6 years, I just kept looking at it. So I've got about 40,000 words of it on my computer, but I'm now 29. So I might want to get to finishing that at some point. But yeah, I sort of gave up on that. And then when I looked into it a little bit more, and somebody told me about NaNoWriMo, which is the National Novel Writing Month, and I thought, you know what? Like, it's time I bit the bullet, and I actually committed to doing it. And in my head, I was like, I'm not going to start with a series. I'm going to start off small. I'm just going to do one novel and then go from there. And me being me, an overachiever, here I
am. So do you struggle with writer's block at all? Have you ever had any issues with the fact that you get there and you've got an idea but just no way of putting it down, or do you just barrage through? Like, what's your process, in a sense, if you've experienced it?
Funny thing you say that. I've got it right now for book 3. I got it in book 2 about halfway through, and I left it for 6 months, and I couldn't figure out where I'd written myself into a corner, because somewhere I'd done something. And one day on the bus on the way to work, I deleted 10,000 words. Just deleted it. Wanted to cry, but wherever that dead end was, it was gone after that. So I don't even remember what was in those words now, but that book's now finished. But yeah, I'm now stuck somewhere in book 3, and I think I'm at the point where I'm going to have to do the same heartbreaking thing. Yeah. For me, writer's block is more when I've written myself in a corner somewhere, and it's blocking something else, and I can't pinpoint where it is. Yeah.
No, very good. So, like I say, you've got a solution though. You just delete and start again, in a way.
It hurts so much.
So having so many characters and so many elements of the characters being familiar, and I guess in their what do you call it, opposite sex scenario as well. So, like, how did you find writing male characters to female characters, but also characters you knew that had distinguishing qualities that you had to respect, and then try to evolve that? So what were your challenges in your character development, I guess, is really thinking about, was it hard to write male characters being a female? Was it hard to understand how the Wicked Witch would work, or the other characters would be in what we already know them as, and you've taken it to another level? So tell us about that process for me, the characterizations. Like,
I think writing for the opposite sex is always a dangerous game. It's something that my partner, I would sort of flesh out a few different questions, in relation to things. So I wanted to give Eveline, a little bit more, for lack of a better term, like masculine qualities. Like, she's quite tough. She's quite, I guess, emotionally inept in that she covers her heart quite a bit. And I wanted to do, I guess, sort of a more feminine take on Hansel, where they're obviously both still male and female, but Hansel's quite empathetic, and he's quite emotionally intelligent with how others are feeling, and he's quite open with his feelings. And his theme throughout the whole series is that he's always holding on to hope, and there's always something better coming, whereas Evelyn's quite negative. So I tried to do a little bit of a role swap in that sense, but I also spoke to my partner about it in, you're a male, what's your take on Hansel? Have I done this wrong? Are there, bits and pieces where somebody's going to, look at it and go, nobody would do that, like you've got books that we've all read before, like Madame Bovary, where us as women look at it and we're like, a woman would not do that. And it's just sort of been a trend in books over the years. So he really helped me with that. But I did try and, I guess, question the societal expectations of what a male or a female should do in that regard. But that's not to say that they don't grow. Like they both grow. Like Hansel gets a little bit more reserved as the series comes on, and Evelyn gets a little bit more open as it comes, moves through. And a lot of that growing they did themselves, and a lot of that is thanks to my beta reader as well, who might go, okay, when she finished book 2, she was like, look, this scene happened, but it's sort of a bit out of character. Like they wouldn't do that. I would have assumed that they would have done this or this. And she had a valid point. So I guess having that extra perspective and getting that from different age groups and from different genders has been really, really insightful.
Yeah, great. So tell me, you mentioned your partner and your family. What sort of response have they been into this now big step you've taken into publishing and now evolving a series? Like what's the support been like for you from them?
The support has been phenomenal. They refuse to read it though until it's in print. I was like, thank you, family.
Make sure they buy it too. Like make sure you tell them to buy it.
Yeah. So my dad's down in Geelong, so he wants to tell everyone. My mum's up in Brisbane, she wants to as well. And my brothers are down in Canberra, so they're like, we'll, go around in Canberra. So that's 3 cities at least.
We'll give them all a box and they can drive around all their little streets.
And drop them all off, yeah. No, they've been really, really supportive. But yeah, none of them have read it. So whether or not they like it, it's a different ball game. They might pick it up and just go, well, this is.
I'm sure they'll love it. So what when you're writing, like you've naturally gone through a very in-depth commencement into the world of being a writer. You've dove straight in the deep end, which is great and noble. Now that you've settled and you've become more articulate in the process of writing and a bit of planter, as you called it, what sort of interesting quirks do you think you've developed as a writer? Like some people write barefoot, have to feel the carpet. Some people listen to certain music. Some people write best while they're driving or dictaphoning it. Or what things do you think you've developed that distinguish your style as for your own personal too, as a quirk?
Definitely the mobile phone thing. Originally it was just for convenience, but I find now that if I sit down at a computer or if I get an iPad, or even though the program that I use goes across all of them, I cannot write unless it's on the mobile phone. My poor little thumbs.
So I was going to say, so the whole series of books are going to be on the mobile phone?
Tiny little mobile phone, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And it's the only way I write. So I normally write outside. The breeze kind of calms me. I like being outside when I write. But yeah, it's the one thing is that it's got to be on a mobile phone. And
that is definitely a writer's quirk. I mean, most people can write a poem or a short story, but not many people I've ever come across writing a full novel or a series of novels. So yes, you win the quirk award for the month. That is definitely one of the weirdest quirks. So now that you're able to write and you've sort of set yourself the goal of the series, have you developed a schedule now more, I guess, comfortable, more strategic to your lifestyle as well as the outcome? So
yeah, absolutely. I think the word counting thing works for me though. So like before writer's block hit this time around, I think I smashed out 20,000 words or something. So it was nowhere near what NaNoWriMo does, but I just wanted to get maybe like 1,000 words a day. So I was happy if by the end of the week, it was 7,000 more than I had before. So I just sort of set myself little goals like that. Because when you look at a manuscript as a whole, it can be quite daunting, you know, knowing that you've got so long to get there. But just doing it in short stints for me, you know, even if I could write more, I don't. And even if I, you know, really struggle to get through, as long as I'm consistent, which I think is the biggest thing for me to have accountability for my own actions. Yeah.
Good. So with that in mind, are you looking at this November again as doing the challenge to maybe do what? Book 4 in the series in 1 month?
Yes.
By that time?
Yes. So this year I do want to do it again. So it should be book 4 if I can get over book 3's hump. But yeah, I just find that if I start the novel in November, if I can get 50,000 words, I think last year I only got 42. But that's still, I think that's an good achievement. Yeah. But yeah, you know, it sort of gets the book going, and it just means that by the time December hits and you've got things like leave, you know, I've done the hard part. I've got the ball rolling, the story's now happening. So I find that it's a really good place where you can sort of overcome that fear of the blank page.
Absolutely. No, it's great. And do you do any thumb exercises on a regular basis besides writing to just keep them strong? It's almost like being a pianist. Like, I just, you know, get the thumbs right. So,
I get a hand massage maybe once a month.
I was going to say.
Yeah, you can actually, you know how you can go in and get foot reflexology? They do it with hands, and it's like $15, and they do it for 20 minutes, and then they give you all these hand exercises. But I've got a little indent on my pinky where it's now, you know, from holding it like this, I think it is, or so I'm interested to see how the RSI goes in future, but we'll deal with that then.
This is Kim Barden, author at 60, you know. But does it energize you, or does it exhaust you? Like, how the process of writing itself, like besides the physicality of writing like that, is it exhausting or is it exhilarating? Do you get a buzz out of the writing?
I do. I get a buzz when I know that I've hit a certain word count, or I'm past halfway, or, you know, there's a scene that I've been waiting to write and I finally get there. And I finally get to write it down. So that's really good. I think, writing invigorates me. It's editing that I really dread.
Yes, rereading, it's like, oh gosh, that was so bad. Yes, it's always arduous.
It's like, I just finished it. Why isn't it just done?
Right, wait, just put a cover on it and go. Yes. So would you say editing is your kryptonite? I mean, that's one question. Like, would you say editing is probably the part that irks you the most of writing processes?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just fiddly and time consuming, and you still miss things. Even though you've read it, you still miss things, and you're
it's like being snowblind. I know, you can go over it 100 times. You just, so tell me the things that for writers, for the readers, out there in the world, readers, tell us what the readers are going to expect and what you hope they enjoy most about this book. Firstly, the first book, Gilded Mirror, as it comes out in March. So tell us, what do you hope for the readers?
I hope they have fun. I hope that I, you know, as a fiction reader myself and somebody who really loves fantasy and magic and fairy tales and all that kind of stuff, reading was always an escape for me. Not that my reality was terrible, but I always loved stepping out and finding myself in Neverland or Middle Earth, or, you know, somewhere where something magical happens. And I always found that, you know, one of the best feelings in the world is when you're so engrossed in a book, and when you finally finish it, you're kind of 1 foot in the real world and 1 foot still in that fantasy world. You know, you're pottering around, but you're not quite back to where you were. And I think that's a really powerful thing, that words can do that, or your imagination can do that. So I'm just really hoping that I can help somebody escape for a little while, and that they laugh and they cry and they relate to the characters in a way that can, I guess, help them express something that maybe they are afraid to. But most of all, I just want to bring them a little bit of magic and a little bit of joy, especially, you know, after the last year or so that we've had. So that's my goal. I just want someone to enjoy it, and if I help them get away for a little while and it feels like they're wandering in La La Land, then I've done my job right. So
well, readers, you heard it here first. She's hoping you enjoy the book. So the first step is buying K.E. Barden's book, The Gilded Mirror, which is available March in all bookstores or everywhere that the books are sold, really. So anywhere you can grab a hot copy of it on ebook or any way you wish. Thank you, Kim, for your wonderful time and your sharing such great information and fun. And we look forward to, of course, talking to you again next year when your new book of part 2 of the series comes out. But for now, everybody, please, thank you to Kim. We look forward to reading your book in release in March.
Thanks, Brad.
Now.